want to let you listen to what they're talking about. What I'm going to do is let you kind of listen. I hope I don't fall asleep right away, but I'm going to just close my eyes, let you listen, and then I'll start talking about what the mind game is. They just said that someone just called the police already. So clearly, I can't even do a live stream without them stalking and surveilling me and finding an imaginary crime. So in December, I'll be 53. I've never committed a crime. I've never had any sort of criminal record, but somehow I got roped into this system of watching me to find a crime, which is illegal in this country. And part of this is that if they were to find a crime during their illegal activity and call the police on me, which is what they said they just did, for nothing, how would they prosecute that? I'm wondering, like, if there's anyone who's a lawyer out there, could you tell me how do you prosecute a crime that someone is committing a crime to find, and then how do you present that to... You just heard that, right? Then how do you present that to the grand jury to tell them you've illegally committed a crime to find a crime, and that this is how you are talking to me 24/7 and suggesting things? Like, they'll suggest something and then see if I do it or not. So it's mind control. So how would they even begin to present this evidence they have against me to the justice system? It's a fraud. It's a scam. The other big part about this fraud and scam, and why I think it should be turned into something bigger, is that they must have done this to other people. I can't be the first victim. They're upset because they said they were trying to keep me from... They said, don't overdo it. They said they were trying to keep me from talking about certain cases. I'm still in America. I live in the Bronx. It was still considered, like I was telling someone, we're part of the continental United States. We're the only borough in New York City that's connected to the actual physical continental United States. I still have the rights of a citizen. And part of them trying to, quote unquote, to them, train me, is that they wanted me to be able to listen to them, follow their orders, but not say who's behind it. Isn't that hypocrisy? Isn't that the opposite of what they want? You want credit for it, but you don't want me to tell you don't want me to tell the world who you are so you can get the credit? Isn't that crazy? They've said they're not going to stop until I take their names off my account. I'll never do it, because how else would you get credit for all of this? I want every single person involved in this to get credit for what they're doing to me. So the last point I want to make before we listen to them some more, because they wanted to be a part of my life so desperately. As I was waking up today, they said that I was supposed to help the elementary schoolmate's little sister, who's much younger than us. I think she's about maybe... If we were about 11 or 12 when she was born, so she's about 11 or 12 years younger. They said that, how could I say I wasn't in their lives? Let me put this out there. If you're... I'm going to put it from the standpoint... Now I'm 52, so I want to put it from the standpoint of a parent. If you are a parent and your little child, who's about 12, has a little schoolmate who's 11... Do you really want an 11-year-old in your child's life? Do you really want an 11-year-old helping you with your infant? No, because you're an adult. At no point would a grown-up say, I am going to hold an 11-year-old to the same standards as I would an adult. Also, an 11-year-old would not grow up and start taking care of my children if I were a parent. An 11-year-old would know that she is a child. She has no responsibility for caregiving in my family. And if at 52, as a parent, would be looking to her to be involved in my life, there's a problem. So I have been looking at this from the perspective of me being a child. I'm 8 years old when I meet them. I'm 11 or 12 when the youngest daughter is born. They're calling me up when I'm about 13, 14. I am a child, but I'm now looking at it from the perspective of an adult and saying, I would never expect anything from children, let alone would I expect the adult child to have anything to do with my children who she didn't raise, she has no responsibility for, she didn't create. I'm looking at it now from that perspective and wondering what was the point of this when they said they wanted to bring the adult child who is now for some reason expecting something from someone who was 11 when she was born or 12 when she was born. I probably was even younger. It's insanity. So this whole system of insanity was just that. And when you say that you're going to expect something from a child who then at 52 is like, I was a kid, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you say you're going to force us to be around each other. That means there's something wrong with all the adults who were present at the time, that you would look to an 11-year-old to be someone who's more than just your child's friend, make her into something more. So I want to let you guys listen to them. I will keep exposing this. I'm going to talk more. I think over the years, I probably spoke less than I should have. I should have spoken up more. And that's something they used to say, like I tended to be more someone who wouldn't always talk up a lot. So I think I should have spoken up more about the situation. And this is what I'm learning about myself. So in this process, I am learning something. I'm learning about myself. If I had spoken up more, people with common sense would have said, no one expects an 11-year-old to grow up 40-something years later and take care of people. No one would think that. That's ridiculous. But because it's out loud and other people hear this, it's even more ridiculous.
So as you guys realize, I slept. I'm happy about that. I They were talking earlier about how this wasn't my program. So someone said that in another targeted person said that, I can't remember who, that the programs are different. So we have things that are similar, but they are different. So that when they were talking earlier, they said they're going to make sure they give a lot of fake information so that it confuses the whole program. But they've said that every targeted person gets a different program. And that makes sense because the things that would work for one targeted person won't work for a different targeted person, because it's supposed to make you feel like this is really what's happening to you and that it isn't a program. It's supposed to seem like it's just a bunch of things happening to you. So for me, they said since they based it on the elementary schoolmate's mother and not on me, they had to turn it around. And they said a lot of the notes that were taken on me, because remember, this is supposed to be like intelligence, like, you know how the intelligence agencies get like a personality assessment and get information on you, and then they can send in a honeypot, or they can kind of lure you in or blackmail you. So it has to be intelligence based on you, which is why they use this constant surveillance on me. They use the excuse that it was because they thought I was going to sue Lacoste, which is a lie, because this started in 2016 for me, when I really understood it. And that was when I was really having a great time on the job. They then said it started in 2015, but then the elementary schoolmate who I know was involved in this and her family said they started when I was a kid. So it seems like they've admitted this, that when I was a little girl, when they would invite me to the sleepovers, they started this whole dream thing. And at night, they said that at one point they said they would put some sort of hot light near my head. So they said this is how they said it worked years ago. They're from Cuba. They said years ago, parents would put something hot near their kids' heads, like a light or something. They just said a light bulb, but something hot so that your head gets hot while you're sleeping, and then talk to you. And then they would say that they would go into the other room and like whisper things and say things to you. And they said it was meant to make kids good. So like it was like supposed to be God, or like, you know, we're watching over you, or like a deceased parent or a deceased relative or someone else who would play the role of, I don't know what this, someone just said something, would play the role of like watching you. So then at a different point, they said a lot of Latina mothers do this to keep their kids good, you know, make them feel like you're being watched by something. So it could be like an angel or something like that. And what they would do with their kids is I guess the heat is so that, because they said if you do this to a child when they're very young, it stays. So I guess it's kind of heating a certain area of the head. And that area, just from my own experience with the heat, it starts to make your head throb. And this is part of why this technology works when it's done. But it also is why it makes people sick. You're not supposed to really heat your head or someone's head. And I hope more people will talk about this. But this is what they've been talking about, and I'm learning. So they said when you're young, in like countries like Cuba, and they said some other countries, the parent can heat the head, whisper things, and over time, if you keep doing that, it sticks. And then you can hear the voices everywhere. So they never lose the voices, and then they get the dreams. So I'll go back to the sleepover. So at the sleepover, I told you the first time I experienced what I felt was a dream, it scared me so much that I told my family. Then later on, they said we used to, like, the elementary schoolmate used to ask me to come over, and her neighbor would let us borrow a bike so that we could ride the bike. So she said at night when we came back, like we was like, you know how when you've been riding a bike, you get the feeling of riding a bike. She said at night when we came back, they would put the dreams on and my legs would feel the sensation of riding the bike. Now, if it's based on what I know I've experienced now, they make you feel that. You don't actually feel it. But as a kid, I don't remember if I had that feeling that I was actually riding a bike. I think I had the feeling of my legs after riding a bike. So they've admitted that. And this is a big deal. They said they keep wanting to move it from 2016 because they said they don't want me to blame it all on the cost because they were involved. Now, here's what I'm telling you. I have not had that feeling of my legs being in any way affected until this has started happening after 2016. So they're saying from elementary school to after 2016, this wasn't all Lacoste. But what I'm saying is, how did the elementary schoolmate get involved in my life after 2016? So they're now trying to say, if it started with the elementary schoolmate's family, then it couldn't have started in 2016. But from 2016 to the present, before that, there was no talking out loud to me, like this constant hissing sound. There was no contact with the elementary schoolmate and her family from 2011. There was no being followed around and making sure that it's seen. There was no intelligence agency, intelligence community contact. So what they're saying is, they're saying, I can't blame Lacoste, but I can in the sense that there are two big reasons why. There was none of this before 2016 with intelligence agencies. When I was at the boutique in World Trade Center, they admit that they said the words Five Eyes. And they admit that this talking brought in intelligence agencies. In 2016, when I started getting followed, it was after I said I was going to leave Lacoste. So if we're talking about this program did not start before 2016. And they admitted at one point that they brought in the elementary schoolmate in order to create this intelligence. So what I'm saying is, here's my argument, and this is part of this. They said this was part of what happened after 2016, and Lacoste would have known, and Lacoste would have been aware of what was happening. And my point becomes, if the argument is, no, this program started when you were in elementary school and Lacoste was absolutely not involved in it, then I want to know, how did they move all these people around me, which is the biggest key of the program. So I'm willing to listen to what they're arguing, but they've already admitted it. So my point becomes, at what point of these years now of me doing this, are they going to be able to say, Lacoste had no idea this was happening to you. They were not in any way involved. The talking that you first heard out loud in their boutique, I heard it in the the Madison area boutique, and I heard it in the World Trade Center boutique. But the World Trade Center boutique was very clear. And that's when I really knew something was happening. And at what point can they then say it was always happening? If those were the clear audios, the clear times that I identified something was wrong, And when they change it to, well, the elementary schoolmate's family did the dreams, no one ever mentioned it until I started doing all of this. So I'm saying two things. I'm willing to listen to the arguments, but once it's been admitted that this does stem from Lacoste and they did involve people who I had no contact with, and they said they were trying to, they used a word, but I can't remember what the word is. They use a lot of, the people talking used to use, they admitted they were foreign. So again, when they're saying, oh, you can't say this and such, they've admitted it. When they used the word, it wasn't recreate because they've used that word. Recreate was what they wanted to do with, they said different points in my life they wanted to recreate. And unfortunately, they didn't have the story right the first time, so you can't recreate it the second time based on a false story the first time. And then what they were trying to do is use certain words and certain situations because they said they wanted my words to be played back to me. And there's nothing wrong with my words. Even, like I said, I got excellent reviews at Lacoste, an excellent reference letter. And my point becomes, at what point was it a problem? It wasn't a problem while I was there. So if this program was known to anyone, why wasn't it told to me? Why did I have to go searching and not investigating physically, but researching and looking into something and find all of this years later? And I left Lacoste in 2017, so that's almost 10 years ago. We're talking about something from 10 years ago. So suddenly to switch this program from when I definitely know I talked about it and definitely know that's when this whole intelligence agency thing happened. And the program started with bringing in people to now we're going to go to the elementary school mates sleepovers, which would have been decades ago. We're talking, I'm 52, so we're talking about 40 something, 40 years ago, 40. We graduated from elementary school in 87, so that'll be 40 years ago. So even if you try to say that when I was about 14, 15, we're talking about I was still a kid. We're talking about almost 40 years ago. Now we're going to say this program has been active for almost 40 years ago. But if you're going to say that, and if the goal is to switch it from Lacoste to them, then we need to know more information. And I'm willing to listen. But they've already admitted, and that's why I kept track of all the videos that I've done. And that's why I recorded these videos. You know how they talk to me as I'm doing a video now. They've been doing it this whole time. So if during the course of them talking to me in a video, they actually said it and they admitted it and let me record it, there was a reason for that. So I'm willing to listen to why they said that this changed. Someone just said they should have something. I think they said Lacoste should have gotten me or something like that. Someone said, why can't I shut the fan off? This is not meant to be that. This is what they're not understanding. You have to, if you're going to make suggestions, if you're going to do all this, you have to take responsibility for the consequences of your actions. This caused me to be very sick. They don't want to accept that. They think this is helping. It hurt everything. They said they changed my behavior, and I want them to take responsibility for that. At no point do I ever want them to think they've done anything positive for anyone involved in this. It's been negative. So someone said they thought they would take us back to normal. This was never my normal. So let me just finish on the conversation that I'm having. So I'm willing to listen to them say that this wasn't something I started with Lacoste in 2016 forward. This was something that started with the elementary schoolmates family. And I want to know, like I said, the dream part I understand. The part that I don't understand, I said I didn't understand it. No, they've explained it.
the part that I don't understand is, how did they get around me again? And if we've been no contact from 2011, when did this whole contact start again? Someone said, I shouldn't have said this was all Lacoste. I never said that. Find the video. They said at the police department, find the proof. Do not stand up here and lie, because I brought in all forms of law enforcement and put this in the court system. This is not a joke. I'm not playing. Someone said, oh my God, that's why. Yes, it is why. See, this is what happened. They brought in all these other people. They call some sort of number. They said they call my cell number, but they call some other number so that they could do like a party line. So you have all these people talking, and they're told to say all this stuff. And someone quit the other night because they said they were told to say all this stuff, and it's lies. And they said they hire black people to make black people look bad. So what I'm telling this person right now is, the reason this is live streamed right now, and I've notified all forms of law enforcement, brought it up in courts, is because I'm going to catch who's behind all this. And I will be saying your name publicly. This is not a joke. I'm not kidding. These people have hurt too many people along this process. I'm not going to hang out with any of you. We're not going to be friends. You're not going to move in with me. I'm going to make sure every single person who's involved in this process, who damaged people's lives, who affected my health, who've caused so much time and energy wasted, will be arrested. I want you all in prison. Someone said most of them aren't. Someone said most of them aren't in prison. They said, didn't the same thing happen to you in high school? Absolutely not. Someone keeps saying they keep feeding us bad information. You can look at my videos. My videos are really accurate. Someone said that's why she keeps doing these videos. Yeah. Someone said we didn't know all that. So who hired you to talk tonight? Someone said it sounded like you were capitulating. Again, not my word. I have never capitulated during this process. Someone just said, the reason she can't see our dream world is it's supposed to happen to you when you're a little baby. You're supposed to be young. This is the big issue. The big issue is that if mothers are doing this to their children, that's not a good thing. If it's being done in Soviet countries or, communist countries, they need to be aware that this is not a good thing. If this is really what's happening, it's not a good thing. Someone said that still would have nothing to do with all this other stuff. Exactly. But like I said, I'm willing to listen, and I will find the video where they mentioned the word, the something, meaning they said this was something that was being done before, and then they were supposed to come around, live around here, and do it again. But they don't realize we don't grow up this way in this country. Nobody heats babies' heads in this country. And I'm not, if my voice in any way sounds like I'm being like, not, it's not. I just can't control the sound of my voice. I'm not. I think if this is something that is going on and moms are doing this, they need to be aware that they shouldn't be doing this, and it should not be done to anyone, let alone babies. But this is what I'm saying. This is information that I didn't know. The other part about this is if this is, they said this war is going to stop. This war never should have started. And if this is how this was supposed to work, that I'm supposed to be supervised 24/7 under constant surveillance and talking to you guys, then you guys need lives. This did not happen before 2016. Excuse me. It did not happen before 2016. And in 2016, you guys you admitted. What you guys have started to do is change what you're admitting to, because for some reason, once you've admitted it, then you change it. But it's been recorded in one of my videos already. So I'm telling you, folks, whoever is telling you this, why not investigate the people who set you up to talk all night? If I can't hear, it's a female voice. So the goal of this has been to not only get the information about who's doing this, get who's involved, record them in some way. And so anyone else they've ever targeted, you can see my voice is going. This technology cannot be used without making people sick. And also make sure that the world knows who's involved, the world knows how this is done and why it's done. I was never sick this way before. In 2016, when I went to the ER, I had a severe pain on the side of my body. And I said, that must be my appendix. They said, no, it's not your appendix, but your white blood cells are very low. And I used to have very low white blood cell counts before, but this was abnormally low. So they said, listen, we'll keep you here for a little. We're going to test your blood. Then we're going to test your blood again. And they said, okay, then at some point they released me. And I thought, why did that happen? I said, maybe, I ate something that made me sick. And someone just said, you shouldn't have said it was food poisoning. So they said they expected me to just yell at that person, but I want you to hear that. Who would know if what I said was wrong with me? Someone said, yep. They said that person doesn't make any sense, because that's what you would think if your side of your body is hurting. You ate something was wrong. Anyway, so in the ER, they said it's not your appendix. But I said, boy, I had severe pain. What could be causing that severe pain? And that's one of these symptoms. And that was in 2016. And I've never gone to the ER with such a severe pain. And I've never had such a low white blood cell count that the ER doctors were seriously concerned about me. So when we're going to say, did the elementary schoolmate do that? No. And this is part of this. There's something going on where they would prefer to blame the elementary schoolmate who had no way of doing all this than when this started to happen, and who would have been aware of this. I feel like when all of these things started to happen, and we kept having people run into the boutiques and steal and so forth, someone would have to notice something. It's impossible that no one noticed all of the stuff happening, and it was happening. And someone said, well, you can't say they were involved with this. They said the word we, meaning they're a group. It's gangstalking. they said, how can we get them to stop? Meaning, why can't they understand they are telling? You're telling. So they said this was part of a they process. So again, they're telling us right now that they're a we, and they don't want me to blame it all on the cost for what they've done. And they're saying, well, the elementary school mate did the dream part, but it was not like this. They said, why that person, I'll clean up that, have to say about the food poisoning. They said she, meaning me. I never said what the doctors said it could have been. Well, they seem to know everything else. We'll see if they can find out. They said they were not at the hospital at the time this happened to you. They didn't know all of that. Here we are. So the goal was to keep pumping me for more information. You notice that, more information. Let's keep pumping her for more information. So how I want to title this, I don't think I titled this in the beginning. No, I didn't. I fell asleep, and I want to title this pumping you for information. So the mind game is when you accuse someone of something or you blurt something out. Most people will respond by giving you information. So I don't know what that technique is called. I'm sure somebody will know the name of that technique, but I'm not going to call it a mind game only because I don't know what the name is, but it's pumping you for information. How they do it like that. They do it by giving you information. So if you can give someone enough information about something, they'll think you know what you're talking about. Then you'll respond and give them more information. They said, didn't we just do it to her? They said, no, they didn't. So I want to talk about every time they try to pump for information. So they give you part of the story. They expect you to tell them more. They accuse you of something. They expect you to respond. They find out information through their intelligence. Now, it can't be publicly available information in that sense that this would work that way, meaning they would use some publicly available information, but this goal is to make you feel like they know more than you know, or more than you would want them to know. So it wouldn't be something that you put out publicly. It would have to be something that they kind of gather, or something they sneak in and find out. So it's about getting you to a place where you think they are the voice of God, or they have more information about things. But once you start to question them, they fall apart. So that, I don't know what that technique is. So the part of the pumping you for information has to be they know something. So in a way, they're giving you information and you're thinking, wow, they how do they have that? So they said that's exactly why they want all this to stop, because she's telling everyone the techniques. Exactly. I want to know every single tactic you folks use on people, and I'm going to tell. So it's all of the little details. So again, pumping you for information involves questioning you, accusing you of things, making you feel that they've been watching every little detail. They said, why can't I include publicly available information? That's what you just said a moment ago. And it's just, it's them arguing with you, yelling at you. I think that could be something else. You know, years ago, they said that this works so well on Catholics and Jewish people. And they said it's because we grow up, and like I said, I didn't grow up Catholic. I grew up in Catholic school. But we grow up listening to people in that way. So that mentally, we automatically, if someone yells at us, we don't tend to like yell back the same way, or we don't respond the same way. So they're using tactics, to me, that you would use as an authority figure. So that's another way they disguise themselves as an authority figure. So I'm going to put that in the title too. Pumping you for information, and pretending to be an authority figure. So that automatic response, they said, this is why we don't put Black people with you. Because the word they just said is coalesce. They said that's definitely a white person. So they said they don't put Black people with me because we coalesce and we go along with one another. Racism. Oh, it's racism. This is a racist program. The elementary school said we would never do all this to you. Okay, so I just want to go to why I'm titling this "Pumping You for Information and Posing as an Authority Figure," because automatically they said that because of Catholic school and I guess the schooling maybe Jewish people go through, we automatically, when authorities question us, we start to respond a certain way. But I think it's also not just the schooling. I think it's if you were actually raised in a certain religion and I wasn't. So they're angry that I don't feel the same way about life that they do because I wasn't raised that way. I also wasn't raised in the way that this would ever be okay for it to happen to anyone. They were trying to shame me into thinking that, well, what if it happens to just bad people? Absolutely not. Because I was put in that category as being a bad person. So they just said now, this is what they mean about me. If it happens to me, then I'll feel different about it. Yes, I would. They said, isn't that just pumping you for information? I talked about this before, so I put this out publicly. The idea they're saying is that they do this to certain bad people so that they can control them. And if I could be saved, why would I care about the certain bad people they do this to control them? Because I was listed as the certain bad person they wanted to control. And once the more I prove I didn't do any of these things, clearly, if I had done these things, you wouldn't be doing it this way. They said, well, what about when you go outside? What about it? No one even approaches me with any of this nonsense. This is a scare tactic that needed to be exposed decades ago. If you guys are saying that you know this system from 40 years ago, then what were you keeping it a secret for? They said, damn, I hate arguing with Black people. Why were you keeping this system a secret all these decades? Decades we're talking about. They said they don't want me to admit that I was at a sleepover when I wasn't. Exactly. This is partially why I had to start documenting things when my memory was good. When this first started, like this part of it, this phase, they said, damn, why do you keep refreshing her memory? This phase of being out loud, they said they don't want me to be able to be a witness. Witness testimony in court. They said they're doing this so I can't be a witness. They'll mess up my memory of things. So that's why they kept going over and over and over and over again with things. But then I started recording and then I started doing the videos and showing you guys proof so that they can't switch this around. They said they really can't hear because of the fan. Exactly, because they're doing it through the walls part. So the people talking now are doing the through the walls part. They said, why can't they be quiet? Anyway, so they didn't want, this is how they mess up witness testimonies. Because witnesses, when you get on the stand and you're questioned and you don't really know what you're talking about, they can get you to change your story sometimes. If, like I said, through pumping you for information, and they're an authority figure, you're in a courtroom, they're lawyers. So the idea was they would confuse me so much that I would just change what I'm saying. And that's why they said it sounded like I was capitulating. And what I'm saying is the more information we can get about this, the better. Could you imagine this is being done to people so that they can't go to court or they can't act as a witness or have evidence against someone because of all the talking at night and this whole system, and it would get them to not be credible anymore, which is what I've accused them of. They just admitted it. They just admitted it. You lose your credibility because your story keeps changing. They said that's why they can't really take her out of this. Okay, so the whole point is you lose your credibility. Your story would keep changing. But when you have so many people telling the same story, the technology exists, it's out loud, it's not going to, the story won't change. But the other part of pumping information and posing as an authority is that if you can get people to just respond and tell you the information they need, then you then can run a bigger scam on that person, so that the victim then gets scammed on a different level. So the people telling them this information get one bit of information. The people who, if they sat and watched the videos, will know the people talking out loud admitted that they did this after 2016. They admitted it. But if we're talking about why they want to blame everything on the elementary school mate who wouldn't have the ability to do all of this, we're talking about, well, why wouldn't it have been done properly? If there was they said because this program is illegal. Exactly. But if this was being done at different businesses, not the way it's being done now, where it's clearly out loud, but in a way that it's quiet enough that you think it's your head. I need to know the first business I remember hearing that in, and it was at Lacoste. So my question becomes, and I'm willing to, I've been doing this publicly now since 2019. I'm willing to listen to people who can prove this was innocent. It wasn't. The question that was asked to me that I knew wasn't my head was, wouldn't I want to be a manager, or wouldn't I want to be the store manager? And it was asked as I'm working in the boutique alone. And I start to look around like, what? Like, that's not my head. And then they just said, I thought it was with the lipstick. No, that wasn't the question. The question was, wouldn't I want to be the store manager? And I'm saying to myself, and there's no way that voice would have just come in to the world. And it definitely wasn't me thinking it. And that's when I knew something was wrong. And that's when I came home and said something about it. And that's when all the craziness really started. It was starting earlier, but the craziness really started when I heard that voice. And if that's what they're trying to disguise as being connected to the elementary school mate, there was no way. There was no way it was connected to her. Thank you guys for listening. I'll do more live streams.